Vernon sat there smiling as he looked at the American flag that hung in the backyard, the newly installed flag waving in the air as he stood over the sink. "Oh, hon, look at that!" "Oh, Vernon, what will the neighbors say of it?" "I know, you love that flag and all that, but shouldn't you leave it behind by now?" Vernon just huffed, shaking his head as he washed the dishes. His frown was clear and evident as wiped the sauce from a dish, he muttered. "Oh, damn be the neighbors, I moved here for you. Besides, you remember the deal we made? I get my flag and you get what?" There was an amused smile as Petunia, who stood there holding the small and frail form of baby Vernon as she huffed. "I better get that silver birch for the backyard Vernon of... I'll dig up that flagpole myself." Okay, calm down, hun. It's a shame I have that abomination of a flag flying underneath it." Vernon's tone dances with amusement as he takes the last of the leftovers and puts them in the fridge. The fat man moving from the kitchen and into the living room with a fresh bottle. Setting it beside Petunia, he would settle into his seat, ignoring the heated glare from his wife as he sat down. "Vernon, I swear one more insult to that flag, and I will personally tell the police what you keep in the attic." Vernon begins coughing on spit, his face going red for a few seconds. Petunia sitting there smugly as she burped Dudley. "It's that threat that let you name my son Dudley, and I swear one day I will bury them in the backyard." Petunia prepared to say something, a smile plastered across her face before being interrupted by Dudley spitting up onto the burp rag. Vernon nodded. "That's what we say to womanly nonsense, son." Vernon swiftly dodged the crumpled-up paper towel with all the speed of a fatman. He begins laughing as he turns the TV channel, the both going silent as they relax and sit there. Vernon tired from a day of work and Petunia exhausted from taking care of the baby. "Hun, tell me, when would you have your sister over again?" "This Sunday, right?" Petunia instantly frowns as she huffs. "Listen, I know you want us to reconnect, but there's something you must know." Vernon paused and muttered, "She didn't marry a Vietnamese guy, did she?" His words deathly serious as he takes a bigger sip of the drink that sat by his seat. Petunia paused, shaking her head and muttering, No, it's something far different. Oh, please, it can't be anything too freaky. She's not being abused or anything, is she?" "The James lad seems mild-tempered from how you describe him, but if I must, I'll break the the man's legs," he averts, swearing narrowly, pursuing his lips as he meets Petunia harsh glaze. No, nothing of the sort. It's just that." She paused as the door knocked. Vernon paused, standing up and striding to the door, peering through the lens before going tense. "Jesus Christ, it's a baby," he says, opening the door to the sound of a faintly crying baby. Vernon reaches down, lifting the basket up and pausing at the sealed note. He held the basket firmly as he looked around, eyes scanning the shadows for anyone before settling on one point. Narrowing as he shouts, "I see you there." Something in the shadows moved before vanishing. Vernon quickly heads inside, sitting the crying baby and the letter near Petunia as he went upstairs. Petunia watched the baby's "I'm going to get my gun" and called the police in case this is a trick. Vernon calmed down. Who would use the baby to trick someone? "It's my nephew," Petunia numbly says, the last part staring at the child. Vernon goes tense already down the stairs with a gun in hand. Vernon stood there for a few seconds, silent as he glanced to the doorway. Still tense as Petunia sat Dudley down, his gaze lingering on the door and his knuckles white from how tight he clutched the gun. Petunia quickly grabs the letter, fumbling to open it. Vernon walking over and peering over her shoulder for a few seconds, reading the letter. He scoffed. "It's Jesus, Petunia magic! What drugs were they?" Then Vernon shut up as he looked over to his wife, his eyes widening as he put down the gun and gently held her, holding her up. Petunia is dead silent and deathly pale, nearly collapsing into Vernon's grip as she whispered, "It's not a lie. My sister's dead." Vernon felt many questions swirling through his head, but remained silent at the certainty in his wife's tone, reaching forward and holding her softly as he just stood there. Petunia ignores the pained look on Vernon's face as she clutched him tightly. He winced and simply pulled her in closer, patting her gently as he muttered, "Hun, sit down upstairs. I'll take care of the kids and we can sort this out tomorrow. Magic's a freakish idea, just calm down." No. I'll get the wizards to come by this weekend. Just my sister's dead, she repeats to herself as Vernon lets go of his wife, reaching for the baby in the basket and feeding him the spare bottle he had prepared for Dudley. Vernon stares at the baby softly, giving it a smile. Magic, eh? Seems Auntie Petunia's lost it. Might explain that scar. Vernon then groaned out as he came to a single realization, not bothering to hide his language as Petunia went upstairs. Damn it. I'm not going to be able to name my second child a properly American name. Seems Petunia's finally going to get me to shut up about that. Vernon jokes to himself as he kept feeding the baby, silently pondering for a few seconds. Magic, magic. Why does that sound so familiar? Didn't some man in those robes? No, that was a dream. Age 4. Harry paused, peeking out of the cabinet beneath the stairs. Slowly looking both ways, his ears listened for anything. His breath hitched as the door creaked his head, looking around before his gaze settled on the kitchen. Vernon sat at the table, sipping on his orange juice while he read the paper. Petunia washed the dishes, cleaning up the remains of breakfast. Dudley sat in his chair with his own cup of orange juice and scribbled paper he was pretending to read. The sound of running facet drowning out the creaking of the lot beneath the stairs. Finally, Harry frowns and shouts, "Dudley, you were supposed to be looking for me." Dudley paused, looking up from his scribbled paper, realization hitting his face as he goes, "Oh, I forgot." Vernon hides his amusement as he takes another sip. Petunia smiled softly as Harry huffed and crossed his arms. "I was waiting for 5 minutes in that smelly closet. You're forgetful and fat." As Harry finished speaking, the air smelt of freshly fallen rain as the carpet beneath him shifted, turning green to a bright red, puke green, and bright yellow with a faint pop. Without thinking, Vernon dived down with a heavy thud, startling everyone else. Every muscle in his fat body tense as his hand reached for his hip before pausing. "What the hell?" he mutters, glancing down at the empty spot on his hip. "Oh, Harry, what wrong?" "Oh, that was my favorite carpet." "What's gotten into you, Vernon?" Petunia jumped during all the chaos, dropping the plate in hand and shattering it across the floor. She spoke with her hand over her chest, surprise and shock in her eyes as she shifted between Vernon, who slowly rose, confusion inked as his own face. Grabbing the broom, he still seems confused, a deep sense of deja vu itching at his skull. "I dunno what just happened, hun. I'm sorry for scaring you. Just an old reflex from the military, I suppose?" No clue where all that came from. His gaze focused on a confused, worried and startled Harry, who glanced down at the floor. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "It's fine, Harry dear. You just have to be careful, and the next time you call someone fat or insult them, it'll wash out your mouth." Understand? Harry nods at Petunia's words while Vernon sweeps up the shattered shards of ceramic, waiting for most of it to clear before moving to pick up Dudley. Huffing in strain, she carried the bare-footed child out of the kitchen and sits him down near Harry, who's sly, staring at the hideous carpet. "Harry, you messed up again." "Ha!" Petunia ignores Dudley's words as Harry remains utterly silent. Petunia just grabbing a small book, which she opens and begins reading. Vernon. "It says here the bright yellow, red and green means high chance of more accidents. I'm going to call in sick for Harry today." Vernon nodded, coming out of the kitchen with a soft huff. "It seems you'll be staying home. Call that lady across the street and see if she can tutor Harry today. Some more Bible reading and math practice is always good." Petunia nodded, glancing to both the boys. "Shoo! Go upstairs and finish preparing for the day while Vernon takes care of my poor beloved carpet." The boys begin rushing upstairs as Vernon shakes his head amused, crouching down and rolling up the carpet. He hears the faint, frustrated noises of his wife. Her sharp gaze remains on her once-beloved carpet. The book, titled Accidental Magic and its warning signs, was slammed shut as Vernon chuckled. "Oh, hun, it'll be fine. You at least reacted far better this time. You nearly threw yourself off the roof when Harry made the American flag you keep in the living room all red. Vernon's features darkened as he began grumbling at that. Vernon glanced at her, hauling the carpet over his shoulder and making his way to the backyard, shouting, "I love you, woman, but never underestimate the importance of that flag. Without that flag, the entire world would be under Nazi and Jap rule." Petunia just walks over to the door, smiling devilishly as she locks the back door. Vernon finished throwing the rug into the backyard as he heads to the back door, grabbing the door handle and shaking it. The door refused to open as he glanced to the kitchen window. "Han!" he shouts, knocking on the door. Petunia just smiles and jokes. "Don't worry, you've got the American flag of yours back there. It's everything you need." Vernon pauses, turning red in the face and huffing as his wife began heading upstairs. Vernon glanced to the shed where he kept the explosives stashed in the bunker beneath the house. He dismissed the idea of messing with her as the door clicks and opens. Glancing down, he spots Harry and Dudley standing at the door, both grinning as Vernon smiled. "Oh, good work, boys. Now go upstairs and harass that dictator I call a wife." Harry paused, glancing at the stairs before furiously shaking his head. "I'm sorry, Uncle, but she'll kill me if I mess up again today." "Harry, my boy, I'm raising you. Do you know what that means? It means you're an American boy, despite living in this watered-down country. You're American, Harry, no matter what your aunt says, and Americans are full of courage. So go harass your aunt for me." Harry and Dudley nod at that and prepare to run upstairs, only for the shrill voice of Petunia to stop them all dead in their tracks. "I hear you down there, Vernon, and I swear if you keep telling the boys that American nonsense, you're sleeping on the couch. Also, remember, boys, Americans are the most genius. It's why we made the nukes. And when not to get into a fight, we can't win. All right, Dudley, get your backpack and let's head off before that communist upstairs infects us." Dudley giggled as Harry gave his uncle and cousin one last smile as they began walking to the door. Harry paused as he looked around, trying to spot his uncle's car as he walked with Dudley, who softly sang a song he had learned from his uncle. "Brought to you courtesy of the red, white and blue justice will be served and the battle will rage." Dudley's words went ignored by the other students as Harry walked alongside him. Both of them walking down the pathway had missed all the busy cars before Harry paused, spotting something rather particular. A man in robes standing there silently, his gaze fixed on Harry unblinkingly. A faint bit of fear runs down his spine as he glanced at Dudley and muttered, "Why is everyone ignoring that weird man wearing robes?" Dudley pauses, his gaze moving around, unable to see what Harry was talking about before shrugging. "Where? Is it one of those Ku Klux Klan fellas Dad told us about? I thought he already gave them all wedges before beating them with the fly." Harry shakes his head, comparing the man he saw to the bedtime stories his uncle told them. "No, this man's robes are black, and he looks weird. To British." His words mimicked his uncle's. The weird man began walking towards him, silent as a ghost and unnoticed by everyone but him. A bad feeling begins to brew inside of Harry as Dudley ignores him and begins walking ahead. Harry calls out for Dudley, but the fat boy keeps walking. The strange man stops in front of Harry and smiles. "It's such a wonderful thing that you can see me. I'm a special man, Harry Potter, and you are a very special boy, you know." A sense of unease begins to grow as a cold wave of something washed over Harry. He gulped and shouted, "I don't know you," but not a single person turned their head or batted an eye. All of them appearing to not even notice his shout as the robed man grins and reaches forward, creepily brushing his hand across Harry's head. Harry shudders and takes a step back. He couldn't get anything else out of his mouth as the robed man grabbed him by the shoulders, holding the young and now terrified boy in place. "Oh, don't you worry, dear Harry. I'm going to take you to see your real parents, you know. They're in such a lovely place, but it's a shame. A very bad man kidnapped them for so long." Harry's struggles died down, confusions entering his eye at the familiarity this man displayed. He gulped, swallowing down his fear and trying to be brave. "You mean? I thought my parents died in a car crash." No. You were told that to protect you." Now come with me peacefully and I can reunite you with your family. Harry's gaze remains fixed on the weird man's eye, giving him a soft nod, some strange compulsion to listen to the man outweighing his fear. As the man reached a hand around Harry's shoulder, a massive meaty fist slammed into his face. Harry suddenly snapped out of the strange desire to listen to the man as he turned to his savior. His uncle stood there red-faced, fat and already stuttering half-formed curse words. "The fuck did you say to my nephew, you fucking weirdo? Listen here, you spaz, I don't care if these people see him gonna beat you to near-death you. You nonce. Shut up. You broke my nose," the robed man shouts, cradling his now bloodied nose as he kneeled on the ground. Harry notes no one saying anything about his uncle's use of a British word, nor taking note of the scene going on just feet away from them. The robed man reaches into his robes rapidly and aims a stick at Vernon, shouting. Before the man could finish, Vernon kicked him in the teeth and yanked the wand out of his hand, snapping it over his leg as he shouts, "Did you just try to stab me with this? You must be on something." Finally, people begin taking notice of the groaning robed man as Vernon looks at them and shouts, "This madman just tried kidnapping my nephew. I know for sure that shit ain't tolerated in America or Britain." Vernon, being a well-known figure in the local community, is taken at his word. One of the mothers gasping as one of the other fathers picking up their sons that day walks over and shouts, "You serious, Vernon?" "Hell yes, I am. You know, I've got a good temper on me despite how loud I am. But this man's an attempted child kidnapper." The man just nodded at Vernon's words before delivering a swift kick to the stranger's face. The stranger groans, spitting out a few teeth as another man shouts, "Boy, go across the street and get on the phone. Call the police while we show this man some sense." Vernon reached down, lifting the man up in a dead lift, holding him above his head before tossing the man back first onto the concrete, punting him across the ground. He spits on the robed man before glancing to Harry. "Go to the office with Dudley and call your auntie. We'll be getting home extra late. Please don't tell her I swore so much." Harry just nodded, waiting for Dudley to catch up before doing as he was told. Vernon squinted down at the ground, looking at the strange broken stick on the floor, a sense of familiarity rising as he looked. Crouching down, he picks it up as one of the men says, "That's what he tried to stab you with." "Yep, war trophy now, I suppose," he jokes softly. For some strange reason he cannot name, he pockets the broken wand. The whimpering man raised his hands and screamed, "Ye, you dirty muggles! Cut this out!" "Shut your mouth! I remember you were harassing that boy, Harry, weren't you?" one of the men shouts as the parking lot slowly empties. A few of the noisier women sticking around to watch the police's arrival. So what you're telling me is that we'll be sending the boy to a magical school, soon tuition free. Sounds good, but why not an American magic school? I've already let you send Dudley to that godforsaken British private school. I got an earful from my sister because of that woman, Vernon rants, kicking away one of the G. Joe toys by his chair. Petunia's face turned sour for a few seconds. A small edge entered her voice. "I understand, Vernon, but we don't know the first thing about American wizards. At least here, Harry's going to a supposedly renowned school for free. The Dumbledore fellow also said it was required for him to get access to his inheritance. Look, let's use that gold I got from Argentina all those years ago and hire a wizard or something to explain things to us. Maybe this Warthog isn't a renowned school. After all, I have to send 50 different letters to that old man just to get a single response." Petunia just went silent, her anger brewing and festering clearly. He has to go to Hogwarts. That is the end of the discussion, and we will not reopen it, Vernon. Vernon began turning slightly red for a few seconds. He just took in a deep breath and leaned back. He knew Petunia's mixed feelings towards her sister made this a difficult subject for her. He still whispers beneath his breath, "Let's see how they react to me giving Harry a goddamn gun." Inherit that, Petunia threw another glare at the disgruntled and muttering Vernon. Neither talked for a few moments as they sit in the empty house. The boys were both gone and dropped off at sports. Dudley had been placed into boxing classes, which would help cut down some of his weight, and Harry had been enlisted into a cyclist group. Finally, Vernon breaks the silence. "You know, I'd suspect Harry's parents were professional bike riders, you know. The boy's a demon on wheels, I tell you." Petunia shakes her head, a soft glimmer of fondness entering her eye as she watched the TV. I may have had my issues with my Lily. But both she and her husband was fond of bicycles and something called the broom, was it? Vernon's silence ended only with a small giggle. A giggle that grew into almost mad laughter as Vernon wheezes. "Oh my God, Petunia, I'm going to make the boy fly around on a broomstick, and it's going to be hilarious." "Vernon, I can already tell what you're planning. Stop it this instant." Her mood rose at her husband's giggling. Her frown died away as Vernon's laughter filled the room. "Think about it. I can use his magic to make an extra strong flag or something and fly it on his broom." Petunia finally chuckled at Vernon. Her attention turned away from the TV as she reached into the snack bowl, sitting between them. Grabbing one of the snacks, she tosses it at Vernon's head. "We will not be abusing Harry's magic when he gets older. It's not natural, and I'm certain God doesn't want us using it." Vernon paused for a second at that. Remaining silent before shaking his head, "I'm converting to Judaism. I must have an American flag be inexplicably flown over Britain." "Vernon, you will not be..." Vernon, Petunia's amusement quickly switched to worry as she saw Vernon wince and grab his temples. A faint throbbing silenced him as he groaned. "Magic, magic," he begins muttering to himself. He winces again, gripping his head tighter. Petunia quickly darts up and heads over to him as he clutches his head tighter than before. "Vernon, what's wrong?" Finally, Vernon went stiff and silent. His mad mutters died down as he pulled his hands away from his head. His gaze fixated on the roof, something sharp and unrecognizable in his eye, a glimmer of a memory. He stood grabbing the broken stick he took from the weird man that had harassed Harry. A piece of wood that now sat above the fireplace, waiting for the coldest winter to be tossed into the blazing fire as nothing more than a kindle. Vernon stared at it, repeating himself. "Magic, magic." In the attic, his face shifted, something flickering in his eye. Petunia gasped as he broke out into a sprint, his fat, massive form running up the stairs and rapidly opening the attic with a bang. Like a maniac, he rushes up the stairs, face red and his breaths labored as he begins throwing boxes aside frantically. "Magic!" His words echoed through the attic and into the house. Petunia looked up the ladder stairs with fear and concern all over her face as he threw aside another box. A harsh shatter from its impact. The sound rang through the house as Vernon pulled out one last box tucked into the deepest and darkest corner of the room. He yanks it from its spot. Layers of dust caked on top of it as he carefully began ripping it open before going tense and standing up. His body relaxes as he mutters, "By God, Petunia, I almost forgot. I've got to go clean up my old suits for a meeting tomorrow." Petunia was almost knocked aside as Vernon headed downstairs like nothing was wrong. Her face turned into a mixture of uncertainty, panic, and disbelief as she turned her attention to the box. It was a rather large-sized box, but she couldn't see why that had triggered Vernon's strange behavior. Her mind wonders if this was a byproduct of Harry's magic, recalling a few chapters that mentioned accidental magic causing similar incidents. It was the only explanation and excuse that was keeping her from calling the police. Carefully, she crouches down, avoiding much of the dust as possible as she picks at the tape sealing the box. Gulping nervously as she was able to finally pry it off and open the box, her breath hitches as she eyes a familiar sight. She recognized them from her childhood and something Lily had always shown off to their parent. Her breath hitched as she would eye the 60 or so broken wands sitting on just the surface. As she began to dig into the box, she only grew paler and paler, that there was even more.